All right, we're live.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Astro Imaging channel. This is Eric. I don't know where Alex is. And of course, my phone is ringing at the same time, but we're just going to ignore that. Hang on. All right, we just killed my phone. Alex not here tonight, so I'm going to be your host. And I wish that phone would stop ringing, but I guess it's got its own mind. Anyway, getting back to our business, we have Ray of Ray's Astrophotography tonight. Ray's going to talk to us about imaging during our position, which is something some of us have tried to do more or less successfully. Me personally, unsuccessfully, but I see what Ray has done is really quite excellent. I've seen a lot of Ray's images on Astrobin, and they're just excellent. And in addition to that, Ray has his own YouTube channel and has, I think he told me, around 70 videos. So those of you that have some interest might want to go over to Ray's Astrophotography YouTube channel and see what he's presented. But without any more delay and without the extended introduction that we normally get from Alex, I'm just going to turn this over to Ray and start your presentation. It's all yours, Ray.
Hey, thanks, Eric. So let me share my screen and let me see if I can share the entire screen. So I do have a live processing video if I can. So I'll show you all that one. Let me know when you see my screen.
Yeah, okay,
We got your screen. Go right ahead.
All right. So, yeah, hello, everyone. Probably most of you knew me from the Ray's Astrophotography channel. So myself, I'm Ray. I wanted to actually do this presentation for a long time. One, I never got time. Two, coming onto Astro Imaging channel, for me at least, is a pretty big deal. I didn't want to present something that I don't know. Not that I know what I'm talking right now, but not even comfortable to that level. So I just never showed up. I was watching every show that is out there, but I never came to the show. I don't want to talk about what I learned. But I did post a bunch of videos. Last 2 years, you must have seen a lot of videos from me. I'm not a planet guy. Actually, I'm speaking for the planets, which I barely knew. Okay, so I picked the topic because that's something that I just did. So I'm showing you and I'm talking what I know or what I did. This is not, the gold standard by any means. So I may be making way too many mistakes than most of you are very experienced. So ignore that. If you have any suggestions, comments, I don't mind receiving positive comments, negative comments, doesn't matter. So just intro about me. So on the daytime job, I work as in the IT profession. I'm one of the directors in one of the companies that sell the software. I do a lot of solutions. I work on pre-sales. I do project management. I work for cities, counties, and work for a lot of government work as well. Work for airports, seaports. And that's one of the reasons why I keep my real name out, not into the public, because in the social media, it just gets messed up. Also, I do work for the military. I work for the Navy and Army projects as well. So that's me out there and my family. I got 2 kids. I don't think I ever announced that in my YouTube channel as well. One of them is college-going kid. The other one is actually in kindergarten. One girl and one boy. I have my wife. She does grow exotic plants at home and tries to sell them once in a while. So I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube, mainly on YouTube. I also have an Instagram, Twitter. I respond to all my comments. I provide feedback. I do a lot of outreach programs. So if you are interested, check out my channel. So that's me. Mostly you know me by Ray, so I'll go by that forever. So back in the time when I moved from California, actually, I lived in Bay Area for 10 years. I moved to Texas, I think in 2006. So I grew, my children actually grew from most of them in Texas, and they saw this suburb going. And when I moved, I didn't know where I was moving. I was moving from California, literally. So I bought this house on a 4-acre farm, and my neighbors also got a few acreage as well. So it kind of like a dark side settings all the time. It's all HOA kind of a built inside. So I can't really build another house or anything like that, but definitely if it has to be, it should look like my house. So it's very expensive proposition to build anything over there. I didn't know all that when I was doing this, telescope and astronomy, all that stuff. So I ended up getting into this hobby because when I saw the dark sky over there, I already love a lot of stuff. I love science. I love astronomy. Like everyone, I watch Discovery Channel. I watch space videos. I follow NASA. I love sci-fi movies. I do track asteroids. I watch comets all the time. So I was like, okay, so maybe I should go get a telescope myself and experience, the real side of the story, right? Rather than watching somebody's pictures or some other video or maybe on TV or wherever, right? So I put there as my balcony story just to kind of feed off me like where I'm coming from. So I was actually standing one night in my balcony and I was looking at the sky and I said, oh my God, I wish I had at least a binoculars to see a little bit closer, right? So that actually spawned off quite a bit of, search on the internet. I mean, most people, we all search on Google, YouTube, everywhere. And I ended up actually finding Astro Imaging channel. That's one of my first channels that I found when I was looking for the kind of content that I was looking for. How do you use the telescope? I have no idea. My parents never used, and my neighbors never used. None of my friends used. I myself never used. So I was like, okay, so maybe I need to learn a little bit. And then I started looking at a bunch of videos. I saw this guy. Probably most of you know who he is. And I saw him on your channel. Actually, it's one of Adam's interviews. And he was talking about this hyperstar. He was talking about his 8SE. I don't know if it's 8SE or 8HD, one of these telescopes he got. And I'm hooked. I was like, oh my God, I need to go get myself an 8SE telescope and start playing around with it. And watched a bunch of other videos. I mean, I got hooked. I watched Astro Backyard. I watched other people. More and more. I forgot to put Chuck's astrophotography picture here. I love Chuck. I watched all his videos. So, when we watch all these things, you know what happens, right? You actually naturally go buy something, play around with it. So when I bought the 8SE, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it actually gave me a lot of surprise, right? It's SCT telescope, and I'm trying to take deep space objects. I'm not a planet fan, so I'm not I didn't even turn towards the moon or anything. So I was straight going into some deep space pictures, and I have 8SE next to me. So my Orion looks like that. My other pictures look like that. It's like, oh my God, I can't do this, right? So I went and bought myself a Hyperstar, learned how to use the Hyperstar, started taking pictures. I went and got, I think, RASA at that time, RASA 11. I think that was one of the crazy moves that I did, jump directly from Hyperstar to RASA 11. It was fairly new at that time. 2 years ago, I was new for the telescopes myself. So it's all kind of coming together, right? So I'm playing around with multiple scopes by the time, figured out, this is something, I wanted to do a bit more carefully, put more time into it. I hate processing. That's one of the things I hated, because number one, it actually wastes my time. Two is I don't have time. Like I barely, between the kids, between the work, between travel, uh, astronomy, and coming back here, spending my weekend on like one full day on processing an image, forget it. I'm not going to do it. So that's where I was. That's how actually it evolved. It is I wanted to tell you this because it's actually quite difficult to keep up with what we are all doing. Actually, when this is not a full-time job, if it is just a hobby or whatever, right? So it's work. I figured that out. Once I figured out it is a lot of work, I have to see how to automate, how to use maybe something that I can do some guiding, or use Sequence Generator Pro, take maybe pictures in the night, leave it out there, stuff like that we all go through, right? So it started getting better. I started getting good images. By the time I think I got multiple configuration of telescopes, I started putting stuff on the YouTube. Things started working out. I got good images out of it. I started learning a little bit more from actually the science of it, like tracking asteroids, tracking comets, and trying to understand what this is. Like, this is not, my side of the world. And I didn't grow up with astronomy as one of the subjects that I studied. I did study science, and I'm a finance major. I did computer engineering, and I ended up in some software company. So astronomy is not like my gig at work, right? So when I do this one, I'm learning like everybody else. So when I started taking pictures, when they started coming out better, people did provide a bunch of feedback. So, saw the other people's pictures. Astrobin definitely is one of the great resources. You can actually compare and look at your picture with other people's picture and see, how far you need to get better, right? So right away, this is mine versus, this is somebody who is a pro, right? So you kind of figure out that, probably you need to go like way advanced processing, or way advanced machines or telescopes, whatever you call it, to get the images that you need. So, I started adding more stuff to it. Then I realized, this is something that I need to do, a bit more right? How do I grow myself into science rather than like a processing person, or getting into like one side of the corner? I never liked that part. So I paid attention more than imaging. I still love taking a lot of pictures. I do pretty much take pictures every other video that you see me. But I started going more into the real time, more into the science, more into what astronomy is, because that is actually my passion. I just don't want to forget that. And also, I love visual. I think most people, when they get into these pictures, they take them one night, 2 nights, maybe 6 months or 3 months, or whatever the time that they need to spend on the same object. And I personally, yeah, it's a great image, but I didn't sign up for that one. I wanted to actually enjoy the astronomy. I wanted to see the night sky. I wanted to experience, some asteroid flying, or some comet moving, or something that is that's lively, right? So I do take pictures just to make sure that I can do it as well, and I do like some good pictures. I keep up myself learning all that stuff, but I like the science side of it a lot more than anything else. So a crazy thing happened when I was doing it, and I was like, by the time it's been 1 year on the YouTube channel, I got like, I don't know, like 600 subscribers or something, and I went live on the blood moon time that came in, and I got like, I don't know why or how it happened, I got like 1,000 people live watching my live stream video. I don't have even 1,000 subscribers for the sake of it, but I have like 1,000 people on the video watching. So it was like kind of crazy. I didn't actually know anything about blood moon period. I just used the RAS 11. I put the IR-UV filter there, and I was watching this moon. I didn't even actually did any homework in terms of like how the moon should look like or whatever. And Mitch from Astro Dude, he was there. I kind of like had in touch with him whenever he's making his Pix Inside videos. So he came on the live show and he got my cell phone number as well. So he texted me like, Ray, you need to bring the saturation down or bring the exposure down to see the color, right? So he's helping me in the back. I was like, okay, that's fine. So I brought it down. I didn't know what to expect, actually. When the moon started turning red, not everybody else, but I ran myself to look at like, what am I looking at on the moon? Why is it turning red? By the time it was already all the way to the top, and I was looking at this moon, it's kind of a pinkish color through my eyes, but actually Rasa makes it more beautiful. A lot more color you can see. I got hooked. Not only I'm actually getting people watching my stuff, but at the same time, I need to do something serious, right? So I went and got C14. There's a long story I can talk about for days on this one, but C14 actually made me feel bad because everything that I do on C14 makes it more difficult. It actually magnifies your mistakes like 10 times, right? So anything that you didn't do before, now you got to do. Like, I'm the guy, believe it or not, I don't even want to put air in my car tires. I drive to a dealer and ask them to go put the air. That's the kind of guy who I was before getting into this one. And now I'm dealing with collimation. I'm taking the mount apart. I'm fixing the cables, putting stuff together. And people are asking me questions. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this stuff before, right? And now here I am doing all this stuff, right? So I started taking pictures with the C14. It is coming out good from C14. I learned how to take planets. I actually was not even good at it in the first place. I did multiple versions of the planets. I didn't like my pictures compared to the people on the Astrobin who takes beautiful, beautiful pictures. So I was like, yeah, I'm getting there, but not really there where I wanted to be. I'm not, on the top 10 or top 15 people. I'm one of them, right? So I was like, yeah, I wanted to get there somehow. Actually, the Mars opposition gave me a bigger challenge. So the challenges with Mars that I have is maybe Jupiter. I learned the geography of the Jupiter, how it looks like, mainly because it's pretty much most people know the big red spot and other stuff. But Mars is like, for me at least, it's an unknown beast, right? I don't even know how the surface of Mars looks like. I saw Mars rovers pictures and I know Mars close-ups, but from the ground, from the Earth, if I take a picture of Mars, which I never did before opposition, by the way, I didn't even know how the Mars should look like, right? Is it black? Is it red? Is it what color? I have no idea. So I started like scratching my head. How do I figure this out? What is the best way to learn? So that's what I'm going to share with you all, like, how some of the pictures are upside down, just ignore that. But it all depends on which side the camera is or whatever that day. But the point is, when I started taking pictures, I started getting to a point where maybe I should pay attention to these images and understand like the surface of the Mars, right? So over a period of, I think, a month or a month and a half, I went live several times as well, showing my pictures. I kind of learned Mars, like, real time. I started seeing other pictures, like I couldn't connect at all. But when I started looking my own pictures and I see week after week after week, I kind of figured out the entire Mars map, right? So yeah, one day I'm going to do that Mars map. But here is approximate of like 80% of Mars area is covered in those 5 pictures. In general, if you take a picture of Mars, it looks like one of these, not maybe a much better picture than mine, but definitely it does look like one of these pictures. So once I learned the surface of Mars, which is, I think, probably the most important one, it gets a lot easier when you're processing the picture. Maybe you need to sharpen the picture a little bit more, or add more color to it, or boost the saturation or whatever, right? Just to give you kind of perspective of what you're aiming for, your end game, right? So that's actually one of the most important things I would say that you need to learn. Like, you need to learn your planet. Like, people ask me on my YouTube channel saying that, take a picture of Uranus, take a picture of this. I got no idea. If I point my telescope there, I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know which filter to use. So yeah, you got to learn your planet. You got to learn. And by the way, most of the Mars pictures that I took, I think they came out very well with the Barder IR filter, IR cut filter. It comes out good. I tried the Pro Planetary filter. I tried some other filter with 685 nanometers. I tried with the monochrome, and that's more complex than I thought it is. So I ended up like saying that, you know what, just keep it simple. There is no way we can complicate it, right? So yeah, I mean, you can see a lot of videos on my YouTube. I'm not plugging my YouTube channel at all. What I'm saying is there is a lot of stuff that I was doing, learning myself. But here is the back of my telescope, right? So this may not be right, and this may not be the best way to do it, but this is what I ended up with, at least, right? So I got the Moonlight Focuser in the back. The main reason I got that one is not just for automation, but I don't want to touch that primary knob. It kind of keeps shaking the whole thing. I did replace the primary with the micro touch, this feather micro touch focuser in the back, but still it's shaky. Even though if you are doing a micro, it does move. So the Moonlight actually keeps it stable. All it is doing is just moving the Moonlight itself. You're not touching the primary, and you can lock the primary mirrors. That's one thing that did help me, even in the nighttime. If I'm inside the home, like middle of the night, if I need to refocus a little bit, I can, right? The TeleView PowerMate is one of the best ones that I think probably I invested into. I didn't know what it was. I saw a bunch of people using it. The 2x, 2.5x is actually more popular. The 4x is good. So it's a pretty good extension to your telescope. It won't do anything other than just magnifying the image, and it doesn't do discoloration, or it just won't get messed up or whatever. You get a pretty good image, like you just multiply your telescope power, right? So I read about the PowerMate and I said, like, yeah, maybe this is something definitely I need. But the trouble is that PowerMate is like so big. So you got to figure out what you need to do with that one. So I put a Moonlight and then the PowerMate. So I really don't, for a planet, I think this setup might work. If it is not a planet, this is not the ideal configuration, period. I did invested in the ADC, the ZWO atmospheric dispersion corrector. To date, I never figured out how that works. But barely what I figured out was it is good if it is below 30 or below 40 degrees. If it is like already up in, like the Mars, it is coming up, ADC won't do anything actually. ADC is good if it is low kind of objects. That's what at least I kind of learned from the ADC website. But anyway, I figured out some of that, how to make ADC won't do a bad job. So I make it neutral most of the time. Very rarely I just move those levers to make any adjustments. But you will see when you make those adjustments, you can see the color, the fringes goes away. You're okay. If not, just don't mess with it. That's where I am. I didn't reach that advanced way of using ADC yet. I used the spacer. I wanted to keep that somewhere in the 55 range. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, I just put a spacer there. And then the Star Arizona filter slider I put there just to make sure I can replace whatever the kind of filters that I want. That other one is the ASI 290 MC. It's a pretty good camera. It does a pretty good job. I didn't brought down my frames per second yet, but definitely, I think that's kind of going to help you big time in terms of your image train. So I wanted to pause here for a second and see if you have any questions.
Can you tell us about the rest of your setup? What kind of mount and what's the focal length with the 2x on it, along with your 14-inch? Was that an f9 or an f8?
Yeah, C14, I think it is F11, F12, something like that. And it is 3,800 by default. So you are multiplying 3,800 times 2. That's what happens, like 7,800 something, right? That's the 2x does.
And what kind of scene conditions? Are you going to go into that a little bit, Ray?
Yeah, I do it every day. Whenever I have time, I watch the Astrospirit, and if it is a good seeing condition, I look at it. I didn't make a perfection from my images, so once in a while I get good images. Once in a while I get probably bad seeing. But if I do have time, I'll just go on image, see how it is going to come. You actually learn a lot more rather than going for the perfect image. That's my philosophy.
Can I ask where you're located and what kind of skies that you have there?
Yeah, I live north of Dallas, north of Frisco, north of Plano. I live near McKinney area, outside of Dallas, which is like around 30 miles from the DFW airport. And I think I don't think I'm like extremely dark, but I'm okay. I'm getting into the red zone when I see the dark sky map. So they are just right around the corner. So, but I have a microclimate because I don't have any neighbors like right next to me. So at least I have a 20-acre land around me. I don't own all of it, but to give me enough dark sky at least on the top. Probably the low in the horizon, I probably might not get a good sky. There are too many houses and too much light. Dallas is extremely bright. No matter how far you go, you are like, it doesn't matter even like 20 more miles if I drive, I still won't get a dark side. So,
Okay, why don't you continue on?
thank you. All right. So other things, fix your collimation. I think one of the things that you got to do. I think Astro Imaging channel has a good video for collimation. I think one of the guys, I forgot his name. I think he did a pretty good video with all his tools and techniques. And I do collimation. Tried using his techniques, but I just do my collimation check at least once in a while. I think that's extremely critical, particularly when you're doing planetary imaging. If you're using fire capture, my mount is CGXL mount. So the fire capture, if you connect your telescope and the mount to that one, it tends to actually send stronger commands to the mount. So I didn't really like fire capture for that one reason. It's a good software. I didn't learn fire capture, period. If I get advanced user of fire capture, probably I'll get a better idea. And it does some kind of weird color for me. I tried to adjust some of them. So I ended up using SharpCap. Okay, so I use the SharpCap software. I actually use PhD, believe it or not, for guiding. So my guide scope is right there. And sometimes I pick the nearest star if there is a possibility and guide, and it will be okay. And the planet doesn't move. And if you are trying to do the rotation of the planet or whatever, it does a pretty good job. Check your sky map, seeing conditions. My philosophy is like, I don't want to become a perfectionist. So because that will kill the story. I don't want to be, one of those guys that got the best picture in the world. I wanted to be one of those guys who knows what they're doing all the time and doing it all the time for fun, right? So that's why I just don't go there. You don't ever me talking about seeing conditions a lot. So you do need a bigger hard drive. I think this is one thing that I learned is, one night I had a 380 gigabytes of data. When you are taking pictures, like, every 2 minutes, if you are exposing, you just end up getting large amount of data. So it's better to have a high speed USB 3.0 hard drive and a good, nice hard drive as well. That will help. I was telling you about the Moonlight earlier. So one of the things that you learn is, or at least I learned is, I can't get planets to come my way, right? So when you're at those 3,000, 7,000 kind of focal length, it's extremely difficult to bring the planet to your field of view. Your sensor is like this small, and 7,800 focal length is like extremely large. And when you bring the planet there, you are like, it's not even a needle in the haystack. It's worse than that. It's like the tiniest movement, you go and make it, right? So I use the guide scope on the top. I'm just showing you the picture there. And I knew where the planet has to be for it to come here, right? I kind of mess around with it all the time. And then finally, I get the image, right? I can get my planet, or whichever planet I was using. I was showing you Jupiter here, but generally I started learning that this is the best way to do it. Believe it or not, before I learned this technique, I was spending like an hour, and I hated it. I was like, there is no way I should spend that large amount of time. By the way, I also learned one more thing, which is, if you're using, not to plug Celestron or anything, but if you're using Celestron CGXL mount or CGX mount, if you do the star alignment, the 2-star and maybe extra 1-star, and if you do a good job with that one, and if you know you brought in the stars to your sensor, chances of you getting the planet, at least in your guide scope, is like 99%. So you don't need to do a whole lot of messing around. You don't need to go outside, look at the red dot or whatever. The planet will come into the field of view if you do a good job. If you do all 6, I saw before, the planet comes straight into the crosshairs there. But we don't have time to do like 6-star. There is no way. So even if you do 3, I think you can make it and bring your stuff into the field of view that you really want. So that's the kind of stuff that you need. I do have a couple of things that I wanted to show you guys. Let me give you a big picture, right? So I wanted to show you how I ended up. Like I told you, I hated processing, right? So I'll show you my image, one of the images that I got. This is basically just a stacked image, right? So this, I used Auto Stacker. Like I did not do any whole lot of work other than that one. And I used the Registacks to do it. I do have a video if you are interested. There isn't much there. I messed around with few settings there. If you really want more details, I can go into more details. Yeah, let's see if we have time to go there. I can show you what that is as well. So basically what I wanted to show you is you get a planet there, you stack your image. This is a 2-minute exposure. And I think I'm running around like whatever the frame per speed is, I don't remember. I got like 11,000 frames or something, right? I stacked that one. And it doesn't look very good. So I use the Registacks and I use the Adobe Photoshop to do the smart sharpen. I'll show you those 3 techniques if you really want. It's nothing much. So this is the image I got. But what I wanted to share with you all is, this is not the image that you see when you see on Astrobin or people who are like pros that use. So I was like, what is wrong with my picture, right? I did what exactly other people do, right? And there is no science here, by the way. This is not science. This is more of an art, because you're trying to mess up your picture to see if you can kind of get the same image. So another thing that I wanted to tell you all is, you really need to know your planet. This is where it is. So you got to know, I know, like I put that thing on the top, the South Pole, for a reason, because I really like the shape that it has got, the V shape, and like this kind of area here. And everything else. So I know how the image should look like once it comes out, right? So once you get to know that image, it gets a bit easier actually for you to process it. So I wanted to show you one thing. So here is a small routine that I built myself. And I said, like, okay, why don't we run all these? I actually showed you the rotation and the whole thing. And also sometimes when I'm on YouTube live, I don't have time to fiddle around with PixInsight. So it's better actually to have some kind of a routine for you so that you don't really need to spend time. You can drag the picture and show it to people right away. Particularly when you are on live show, right? So it's better to actually understand that routine. And PixInsight has that image container and process container. If you want to go into those details, I can explain. But if you build your own process containers for your image, that's what you get. So you end up if you just go back to that image that you got, this is the one that I have, and this is the image that you're going to get. And you could apply the same kind of routine for rest of the images as well for your that night. By the way, this process container, you may need to tweak a little bit, depends on the seeing conditions, as Eric was asking. Depends on the night, depends on the side of the planet that you are on, a lot of other conditions. So some of the smart sharpening and all, you may need to turn it off. Let me show you what actually is happening, right? So if I go back, I wanted to give you a little bit of imaging tutorial here. So there is an unsharp mask, right? So when you see that unsharp mask, this is what I was using. Basically, I'm just sharpening it. So if I do that sharpen, you see the image actually gets sharper. If you go in here, you see that versus this one, it gets a bit sharper, right? And I'll leave it like close up like this, so that way you can get a better deal of it. And then you got to do, I don't know, like if you do this histogram transformation, it does change the colors. It improves slightly better. This is not, by the way, in any means the way to do it. I thought this is the way I figured it out. So I did an unsharp mask again. I started bringing out, this is better than the wavelets and all that stuff, right? So I got more details here. I did one more time. Looks like I'm getting a lot of data. So I said, like, why not dig deeper, right? Like I knew this is all the sand and the black stuff there. See that? This is literally Mars surface. I'm feeling better of how I'm getting. By the way, when you are doing this processing, check the edges. If these edges are getting, like too pixelated, then I think probably you need to stop. This is where I kind of stopped. But if this is becoming too pixelated, then you are like, killing your own image. So don't do that. So I'll show you what I mean. See this? This is the artifact that you get. And if you do sharpening over and over, right? And then you go do a bit more curves transformation. I'll put this on the website so that you guys can download my process. But you are getting this already, and you can stop the video. This video I'm playing here, and you can see my settings. So you get a little bit more lighter side of the image once you get it. And this one actually changes the colors a little bit, gives you that Mars color that you need, because the other one was a little bit more yellowish. And at this time, I actually did one more sharp because I felt there is a need to bring out more data, right? And you're introducing a lot of noise, right? So I did the denoise. The denoise actually works really well as well. I didn't see any tutorials like this before. So I was actually learning planetary processing on my own. So I was like, I didn't even post this video on my own YouTube channel, by the way. And then I got into the curves transformation. I said, like, maybe I need to reduce that blue, RGB align. I did RGB align in the other one. It didn't go. So I'm like trying to get rid of that blue fringe. I did that. probably one more time. I think here I was masking a little bit, I believe, and did a denoise again, which gives you actually a pretty good deal when you denoise it. And if you over denoise it, at this point, it becomes like too soft, where you don't want to be, right? So before and after. So I didn't go soft at all with this one, right? And did a couple of more curves transformation, basically just to bring, the saturated kind of Mars, right? So, and do it a little bit more, just bring down the, the brightness of the planet, and more of it, a little bit more gives you, this is where I wanted to stop. I said, like, this is exactly what I wanted, right? I believe I ended up doing one more denoise. I felt, I don't know, I thought I stopped there. And this routine runs probably like 2 minutes or something, or 2.5 minutes, and it gives you the image that you want. And that's pretty much what you need to do when you are trying to image. By the way, the other two, the auto stacker and the Registacks, I use them a lot first. Like in the beginning of my process, I do that quite a bit. And once I'm done, I go into the Adobe, like to bring the Smart Sharpen in Adobe is excellent. I mean, if you don't want to buy that AI, the new tool that came in, Smart Sharpen in Adobe is pretty close to what it is. I think if you do it just once, I think I have a video on the Smart Sharpen on my YouTube channel. You can copy those settings and you can mess around with it. It's not much.
Ray, can I interrupt you and ask a couple questions?
Yes.
So you captured how many frames? 11,000 frames for this particular video?
I believe so, yes.
And how many frames did you use for stacking?
Usually around 55%. Sometimes
do you use the auto stackered quality evaluation to determine how many frames, or you just take a number?
Correct. Let me actually show you. I do have that auto.
No, that's all right. I was just trying to get a sense for it.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so this is the auto stacker that I have there. And I believe this is the video, right? So it actually opens up. This is the raw data, right? So the way I do it is, I mean, I'm not a perfectionist on this one, so don't take my word as the. So I scroll to the right to see what is the best image. I'm looking for more data, right? Yeah, so something like this. If you can go further, you might find more. But anyway, I do this 24 and I place the AP grid here. These settings are the defaults that I use. If the sky conditions are good, like the way the image, for me, it is good. If it is more blurry, I would do like maybe 20 or 30 at it. I don't go 55. But when I was dragging to the right, I see probably 50% of the images are good. So that's my number. If the quality is so bad, I'm only getting once a while, I'm at 30 when I do that. If it is really bad, I'm at 10. So that's how, in my mind, I read that frames there. And if you stack it, it just stacks a beautiful image.
Okay, getting back to PixInsight, your process container, you're posting that on your website. So if someone wanted to run their planets and use your process, they could?
Yes, they can. Yeah. I mean, it's you can pause this video. I think most of these are. Yeah, definitely. So that's pretty much what I got. I mean, if you have more questions, I'm happy to answer how I do that wavelet transformation as well. Actually, if you do have time, Eric, do we have time to go to the other one?
Sure. Listen, just it's your presentation. We got plenty of time,
Okay, so if
especially
I
when we're learning some things about processing planets.
oh come on, not on the astro imaging channel. I don't want to do that. Okay, so if I go down to the picture that I took, the V2 that I got, I believe this is the one that I got. So this is what you get, like when hold on, this is not the picture. Generally, I save it as a V2 after I make the changes. So I need to bring this is a stacked image, okay? Because that image actually looks much better, right? So this is the kind of image that you get from the auto stacker. You are in the registry now, right? So I mean, you can save. Like my habit was, I save these. What do you call these wavelet functions every day or every time I take pictures. The idea is depends on the seeing conditions, depends on what's going on that night. If you want to ever go back, you may need to use those settings because otherwise you need to save or record somewhere. So if you do that, how you processed or whatever, you see that a big change happened the moment I did that. If you can notice, what it did was it changed all these wavelets, and it gave the right percentages. Um, depends on the time I have. That's all the time I spend over here. And then a couple of things I do here, like on this thing, which is RGB align is extremely good. Actually, this is better than sometimes even if you don't do a good job on your ADC, the atmospheric dispersion corrector, it's okay. You can come here and fix your RGB. But if it is that bad, I think you are in a big mess. Okay. So what I mean is when you click on this estimate, and if it is giving like a minus values here, that means that image is no good. So I think it takes more time to do RGB align. So I would do estimate, and if it is showing 0, I just don't mess with it. I know like I can fix that in the post processing. This estimation, I don't know what it is, but it does take some time. So just wait and let it run, and it'll automatically complete it. Okay. The other thing that I learned is if you wanted to resize image, I think this is the best time. And also if you wanted to flip and rotate, this is also the best time. So if you don't like the way upside down Mars is, definitely you can change to the fashion the way you wanted it. So in my case, yeah, something like that I would prefer. It's not scientific. I mean, you can go into WinZoopos and actually get the right way the planet should look like, but it's more of a presentation than anything else. So you're looking at the planet, and this is a beautiful image, by the way. The entire thing looks amazing. And when you look at this picture, this side of the image, it actually gives you a completely different idea on how Mars is anyway. So that's that one. And then you go, what else I was doing there? I think I do gamma here. The gamma does something. Okay, it actually reduces the brightness somehow. Like, see that? A little bit. Okay, I do that one once in a while. Maybe if I bring it down a little, you will actually see it. Yeah, it makes it really nice. I really like this one before I move away from here. And I do the resize once in a while if I really wanted the bigger image for some presentation. Another important thing, if you are trying to process this for rotations, is if you do have a window like open on your machine, like meaning, let's say you got stuff like this, right? If you are thinking like working on like I don't know, like 20 images, right? You just figured it out, this process. It took maybe like 2 or 3 minutes for us to get to this point on this image. But if you got like 20 other images, right? So you don't need to do all this work at all. All you got to do is go into whichever folder that you got all your images and just drag the image here. Like, let me show you what I mean. If I go to the demo AIC, and if I go to the image that I got, so this is the image that we loaded there. And if I bring the image here, look at that. It actually automatically does everything for us. It does the rotation, it does the RGB balance, it does the sharpening. Every setting that you used, it remembers it and it plays it. So if you, and once you save it, it only saves the wavelet functions when you save it here, but these ones won't get saved at all. I couldn't figure out how to do it. But from a processing standpoint, if you do process one image, I think you can do the same thing for 20 other images, right? So it's pretty easy. Just drag that here to this folder. The only way I figured out was dragging it. If you open it, then it won't do it. It just sits there. But if you drag it, it does exactly how you processed it, including the angle which the planet that you wanted to point. You don't need to do anything at all. It's a pretty damn good way of doing it. You can do the same thing in the auto stacker as well. When I say same thing, what I mean is in the auto stacker, you got to, let's say you got 20 videos that night, right? So if you wanted to do all the 20 videos, right? You don't want to do one video at a time because this will take, I don't know, like overnight. So it's better you drag all the 20 videos from the windows to this program. And this number from 1 of 1 does change to, I don't know, like 1 of 15, 1 of 20, how many ever videos that you got. And that's it. You get a pretty good deal. Whatever that you did for that one image, it remembers the whole thing. And even if you are doing the rotation, it knows what it is supposed to do. And I don't know how it does it, but every image comes out beautiful. Like the way you're doing processing one at a time. The rest of the stuff, like, if you are going to try to analyze and move the graph and all, it's way too complicated. I don't like that much complication, but this is good enough for you to get a good image out. So that's pretty much what I got on my presentation. And if you do have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, there are a couple questions that come up. So you have the YouTube channel, and where else do we find your images? It's on Astrobin, any place else?
Yes, I am on Astrobin and Instagram as well.
And if we want to find you, we just look up Ray's Astrophotography?
Yes. The same handle I was using on Facebook, Instagram, Astrobin, everywhere, I guess. So.
Do you have a website or just the social media?
Yes, Molly, I have a website called raceastrophotography.com.
Okay, I'll post the link in the chat.
Yeah.
And do you have any intention of switching to a mono camera with filters?
Yes, I do. I have a mono camera with filters. Oh, for the planetary, you mean?
Yes.
I took that, and it's way too complex. It takes a lot of time, definitely. So, the processing of the image, and it gives you a much better resolution, definitely, more than the color, no doubt. But if you're doing RGB, and if you're taking one image for the perfection, there's no problem. But if you are interested in, like, Mars rotation or something, it's impossible. Using the mono and rotation, forget it. It takes a lot longer to process. You got to, and also the WinZoopos makes it worse. So yes, it is possible to be done, but if you are trying to get one good image, I think mono is good. But if you're trying for fun, and if you are trying to do Mars rotation and all, I think it's complicated.
So you mean complicated that you have to shoot your videos fairly quickly in order to not have rotation of the planet?
Yes, actually, actually you're right. So you got to let's say if this is 2-minute video, like 2 minute is okay for Mars, okay. Maybe if it's rotating fast like Jupiter, maybe 2 minutes maybe overkill, maybe a minute is good, right? So you got to for you to get the best image, you got to do at least a minute or for these 2 minutes, right? So even if you do like less than 2 or 2, the remaining, the G and the B, you got to take it to WinZoo pose and you need to derotate and use that RGB to stack. So you got to do that for every other image, right? You have 2 images you are derotating every cycle, and that's too much.
Somebody asked whether the blue fringe was just the atmosphere of Mars, or was that an artifact of your processing?
Both. Probably both. I did saw that one. I just brought it down, but it could be probably both. See, the trouble with this ADC is it doesn't actually completely changes it. It cuts it down a little bit if it is low, but once it's all the way to the top of the sky, you are not getting a whole lot of color issues at the time. As long as you make it neutral, it should go away. Chances are maybe I fixed the ADC when it was low and it was still tracking the mount, and I didn't. You need to go back to the ADC and you need to fix the ADC again to make it 0, like neutral when it is like beyond 40. I think if you don't do that one, you get a blue fringe. So you bring it down. So
when you do your sharp capture, do you crop it down to get a faster frame rate? And if you do, what do you crop it down to? What is your image, your capture size?
Yeah, so this is live right now, I believe. So I think the planet went away. I stopped guiding. So this is actually the settings that I use. So I use like color space raw 8. This is my mono when I do raw 8. If you do RGB, I think you get a RGB video definitely, but you don't get the same kind of details that you need. So RGB 24 actually makes it much bigger size. You're already at 350 gig. You don't want to be more than that. So RAW 16 makes a much bigger image as well. Mono doesn't cut it, particularly on the color. Again, you are back to the square one where it's better to use mono then. So RAW 8 is probably a best setting that gives a black and white video, but when you bring that into Auto Stacker, it understands your RGB and brings the colors automatically. But RAW 8 will capture it pretty good. And I usually leave at the size that I am right now. I wish I had the Mars here. I can show. If I do have time, if there is any question, I'll find Mars and bring it over here. I don't want to go below this one, like below 800 by 600, because my Mars is almost this size, right? So, I mean, other people actually bring it down and their frame rates are like 100, 200 a second. I can't do that. I mean, I'm like so close and my picture is so big. I would rather enjoy lesser frame rate and tracking is very difficult if you go to the edges. So I leave it at 800 by 600, and it does leave a little bit of room on all sides. I think you should be good. It's good actually for Jupiter, for Saturn, for most of the things that we capture these settings. And the rest of the settings are same as well. You got to see what I learned as well is you got to bring the gain down as much as you can. What it does is it reduces the noise in the picture, right? So if you don't bring the gain down, you're just introducing noise unnecessarily, right? And then you increase your exposure time, the problem with this is your frame rate is going down. Okay, so it's an expense of the frame rate. But I would rather have good frames rather than 100 bad frames, right? So if you do this, increase in the time and reduce the gain almost zero, your frame rate goes down, it suffers, but it's okay. Like a lot of people actually try more frames rather than my approach, but that's okay. I think there may be a balance somewhere. I'm not again, so these are just me talking with my experience, and I got no background. So just don't take this literally, and you may be going wrong, and maybe you should do gain something and increase your frame rate. I have no idea. I just do it for fun. So as long as you're doing it for fun, I think it's a pretty good idea. If you take it too serious, oh my God, difficult.
Well, I think you're right, and I think that we all really do the same thing. We experiment in order to find the best conditions, rather than saying these are the only conditions that will work. And obviously, the conditions that you've said have really and produced this excellent Mars image. I know I tried this a while back and had absolutely zero luck with it, but
No,
probably had the wrong telescope and lack of experience.
no,
Do we have any more questions, Molly? Did I miss anything that I need to?
I think you got all the ones that I saw in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, just I put a reminder in there for people to get their questions in now.
Okay, Ray, thanks so much. If that's the end of your presentation, I think you can turn off your presentation. I'll turn on my camera.
Thank you. Yeah.
And before we end our session tonight, I just want to remind everyone again that we're getting close to 10,000 with 9.84. So please, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the Astroimaging channel. We appreciate it. Once we get to 10,000, I think magical things happen with us and Google. I'm not sure what they are, but I'm told they're all very nice. And normally we'd go over who's going to present next week, but I don't have that up, and Alex is not here to do that. Molly, do you know who's on for next week?
Oh, yeah. Give me just 1 second to pull up my calendar. Oh, yes. So we have Andy Campbell back again next week. As you might recall, the last time he was on a few weeks ago, my internet totally died and crashed and burned. So the broadcast ended early. So we're going to have him back on to finish talking about creating dynamic images and going a little more into detail. So it'll still be a full length session, but we're going to have Andy Campbell back with us.
Yeah, we cut Andy off. That wasn't very nice, Molly. But I know Andy has a lot more to say, and he produces some wonderful images from down under. So, be sure to show up next week. I'm really excited about Andy coming back on, and we certainly have to make up for our treatment of him last time. But he's a good sport, and I don't think that he'll really mind. Is there anything else, Molly, we have to cover, or are we done?
To start thinking about their submissions to the compilation video that we're putting together of deep sky objects inside of the Orion constellation. So just like the Comet Neowise video we did earlier this year, we want to make a video of all of your amazing astrophotography on the theme of things that are in Orion. So if you happened to catch the comet that was going through Orion, that would be a super awesome image to submit. It doesn't have to be just the Orion Nebula. There's lots of other gorgeous nebulae inside of the Orion constellation. So you can make those submissions on our website. I think we have that. Oh, yes. Yeah, we do have that capability because we used to do image of the week. So yeah, submit it on our website. That way we have the full res version instead of the compressed ones that Facebook gives us. And so I think the deadline for that is Super Bowl Sunday, which is the first Sunday in February for those of you who are not in the US and don't follow American football. So plenty of time to take those images, get them processed, and get them sent to us, and we're going to put together a really slick video.
Okay, and just thanks again, Ray, for your great presentation tonight, and for everyone out there, please, everyone, stay safe. I know coronavirus is kind of spiking right now, so let's enjoy working on our images in our office at home or wherever you work on them, and stay safe. So Molly, I think we're all set. Why don't you take us out?
All right, I will
All
take
right.
us out.
Good night, everyone. Have a good week. We'll see you next week.